Amarillo, Texas, October 1958. John Wayne is standing in line at a feed store on the east edge of town. The head clerk rakes an old rancher's coins off the glass counter and onto the floor. Then he snaps the credit ledger shut in front of 12 waiting farmers. The old man takes off his hat and bends down to pick up every coin. Wayne says nothing. Not yet. Here is the story. The store sits where the highway bends north. A long, low building with a loading dock on one side and a heavy iron platform scale bolted to the plank floor just inside the door. Feed and seed. Sacks stacked to the ceiling. In October, the place is full of men, because October is when a cattleman finds out whether he can carry his herd through to spring. The drought broke the year before. 7 years it held on. 7 years of watching the grass go, and the tanks go, and the neighbors go. Then in 1957, the rain came back, and the Panhandle started over. And starting over in cattle country means one thing: credit. You buy feed in October, and you pay in the spring, after you sell. That is how it has always worked out here. A man's word, written in a book behind the counter. The old rancher's name is Otis Teague. He is 71 years old. He runs 2 dry sections north of town, 1,280 acres, and 38 head of cattle, which is not much of a herd anymore, but it is not nothing either. He drove in this morning in a truck older than the highway. He has come to buy 10 sacks of feed, $2.60 a sack, $26. He is standing at the counter with his money counted out. Wayne is 4 men back in the line. He is in the Panhandle looking at horses. He has a picture he has been trying to make for years, and it needs horses, and it needs feed for those horses, and men who know both. So he came to see for himself. He is wearing a work shirt and a hat, with sweat in the band, and he has been standing in this line for 11 minutes like everybody else. Nobody has said anything to him. Out here they know who he is. They also know a man in a line is a man in a line. Before we go on, what state are you watching this from? Put it down in the comments. I want to see how far a story about a man's word still travels. Now watch what happens at that counter. Otis puts his money on the glass. It is coins, most of it. $11.40 in quarters, and half dollars and dimes, in 3 neat stacks, and a folded $10 bill underneath. $21.40. He counted it at his kitchen table before dawn. He counted it twice, and both times it came out the same, and both times it came out $4.60 shy of 10 sacks. He drove in anyway. That is what the book behind the counter is for. The head clerk looks at it. Then he looks past Otis at the line, and he raises his voice so the line can hear it. Coins. That's what I've got, Otis says. The clerk starts counting. He counts out loud. He picks up each stack and lets the coins fall from his hand onto the glass, one at a time, so they ring. 12 men stand behind Otis Teague and listen to his money ring on a counter. He does not turn around. He stands there with his hands at his sides and lets it happen, because the feed is in the back and the cattle are at home and there is nowhere else in Amarillo to go before dark. The clerk gets to the end. Short. $4.60, Otis says. Put the difference on the book. I'll be square in the spring. You'll be square now. The clerk pushes the stacks with the side of his hand. Not a shove, just a push, the way you move something off a desk. The coins go across the glass and over the edge and down onto the plank floor, and they scatter under the counter and under the iron feet of the scale and under the boots of the men in line. There, the clerk says, count it again. Then he reaches for the ledger. The ledger is a long gray book with a cloth spine, and every account in that store is in it, and the store runs on it. He turns it around so Otis can see his own name. He runs his finger down to the number. You're 11 months out on the last one. I told your father I'd pay in the spring. My father doesn't work here anymore. And he closes the book. He does it hard, with one hand, and the sound of it goes all the way to the back of the store where 2 men are loading a truck, and they stop loading and look up. You're closed out, Teague, cash forward. And today you're $4.60 short of cash. That is the whole thing. 40 seconds at a counter. No one raised a hand. No one threatened anybody. A man just took an old man's account away in front of 12 of his neighbors and made him get down on the floor for his own money. And Otis Teague takes off his hat. He takes it off and he holds it in his left hand, and he gets down on one knee on the plank floor and he starts picking up coins. 71 years old, on his knee, in front of everybody. Nobody moves to help him, not because they do not want to, because helping him would mean seeing it, and seeing it would mean saying something, and every one of those men has an account in that same gray book. That is how a thing like this works. It is not cruelty that holds a room still. It is arithmetic. Wayne has not moved either. He is standing where he was standing, 4 men back, with his hat in his hand and his eyes on the floor where the old man is working. He is counting. Not the coins, the room. The young farmer in front of him is 19 or 20, in a canvas coat, and he has gone red in the face. He is watching Otis crawl and he cannot stand it. He turns around and he needs to tell somebody, and the only man behind him is a tall man with a hat. "That's Otis Teague," he says, low, fast. During the drought, he opened his only working well to every ranch north of town. My father's herd was one of the ones he saved. Wayne looks at him. Then he looks back at the floor. Here is what the boy did not have time to say. Otis Teague had a well that held. He did not sell that water, and he did not lease it. He ran pipe, and he loaned tanks, and he let men haul off it. For 9 ranches north of Amarillo across 4 summers, and he never wrote down a gallon of it. And it cost him. Water you give away is water you do not put on your own grass. He came out of that drought with 24 head, where he had once run 60, smaller than every man he had watered. 4 of those 9 families have accounts in the gray book on that counter. One of them is standing 3 men behind him right now. Not one of them says a word. And the 11 months. In the spring of 1958, he had 14 calves standing in his lot, and a man rebuilding a herd does not sell calves. He kept every one of them, and that is the 38 head he has at home this morning. He chose cattle over the book, which every man in that line had done at least once, and every man in that line knew it. The boy said all of that in 3 sentences. Inside the store, only seconds have passed. Otis Teague is still down on the floor, and what he carries out of that room is not $4.60. It is his name read out of a book in front of his neighbors, and the men who had hauled water off his place finding something to study on the floor. A man can lose cattle and rebuild. You do not rebuild the other thing. Have you ever had a room full of people go quiet on you when you needed one of them to speak? It stays with you, doesn't it? Otis finds the last coin under the leg of the scale. He gets up. It takes him a while. He puts his hat back on, and he sets the coins on the counter in a pile. Not stacks anymore, just a pile, because the stacks were pride, and the pride is gone. "That's all of it," he says. "It's $4.60 short. I'll come back Thursday. Suit yourself." And Otis Teague turns around to walk out through 12 men. That is when Wayne steps out of the line. He does not step in front of Otis. He steps around him, up to the counter, and he puts his hat down on the glass. The store goes quiet in a different way. Then he puts 2 fingers on the closed gray book. The clerk looks at the hand. Then he looks up at the man standing over the book. His shoulders stiffen first. The sentence dies before it reaches his mouth. A customer has just become John Wayne. "Mr. Wayne, I didn't open it." The clerk opens the ledger. Wayne turns it around so it faces him. He looks down the page. He finds the line with the old man's name on it, and the number beside it, and the 11 months of dust on it. Then he puts his hand out. "Pen." The clerk gives him the pen. Wayne does not move for a second. 1, 2, 3. And then he signs his name across the guarantor line under Otis Teague's account, in full, the way a man signs a thing he intends to be held to. "Put it on mine." 4 words. He does not say them loud. The men at the back of the store hear them anyway, because a room that quiet carries. The clerk looks down at the page. He looks at the name on the guarantor line, and then he looks at the account above it. And whatever he was going to say about cash forward, he does not say it. He picks up his own pen, and he writes the date beside it. because that is what you do when a thing goes into a book. Then he enters Otis Teague's $21.40 against the order, and puts the remaining $4.60 on an account that now has two names on it. Wayne picks up his hat. Now think about what he could have done instead. He could have paid the $4.60. He had it in his pocket. It would have taken 9 seconds, and the whole store would have watched John Wayne buy an old man's feed and told the story for 30 years. He could have bought out the account, the whole 11 months of it. Cash on the glass, and the clerk apologizing, and Otis Teague standing there being rescued in public. He could have gotten the store owner on the telephone and had the clerk out of a job by supper. He did none of it, because Otis Teague did not walk in there needing $4.60. He walked in there needing what he had walked in with every October for 40 years, and what got taken off him at that counter in front of witnesses. He needed somebody to say he was good for it. Cash would have made him a man who was helped. A signature made him a man who was backed. Wayne turns around with his hat in his hand, and Otis Teague is standing in the middle of the floor looking at him. Two men, 20 years apart, one of them the most famous face in America, the other one 38 head, and 2 sections of dry grass, and a truck outside with the door tied shut. Neither of them says anything. Otis puts his hand out, and Wayne takes it, and they stand there holding on for about 4 seconds. Then Wayne lets go of his hand. He looks toward the back of the store, at the 2 men who stopped loading. He looks past them, out the open dock door, at the truck in the lot with the door tied shut with baling wire. That is all he does. He does not say a word to either of them. And he walks out. The 2 men load Otis Teague's truck, 10 sacks. Exactly what he came for. They carry every sack out to the bed without making him ask, and they rope the load down before he climbs into the cab. 2 men he had known for 30 years, working for him in silence at the dock after watching him kneel on the store floor 20 minutes earlier. It is not charity. It is the ordinary respect they should have shown him when he first walked through the door. That is the last anyone in that store sees of him. He is in his own truck and gone before the dust settles at the dock. Then the line closes up. The young farmer in the canvas coat steps forward with his feed list still folded in his hand. He is the next man at the counter now, and his hands have not stopped shaking. He does his business, and he goes home, and he does not say anything to the clerk either. He had been standing close enough to help, and he did not, and a stranger 4 men behind him did. He would carry that a good deal longer than he expected to. Wayne left Amarillo the next morning. He went on west, still looking at horses for the picture he had been trying to make since the war. The picture got made. It nearly ruined him, and it is the one he cared about more than any of the others. He never mentioned the feed store. Not in an interview, not on a set, not once in 21 years. There is no reason to think he remembered it particularly. Men like that sign things. Otis Teague remembered it. He came back Thursday with $4.60 and cleared the new balance. The older account stayed under Wayne's guarantee until the following June. Otis paid that off himself, 5 installments in all, in coins some of those times. He drew against the guarantee that first morning for $4.60. The name stayed beneath his account for 7 more years. But Otis never once made the store collect against it. He paid every load himself on the day the spring check cleared. 7 years, 40 loads of feed, together they came to $2,560. $64 a load on average, carried across 7 Panhandle winters on the word of a man he had shaken hands with for 4 seconds. About $366 a year. In seasons when 38 head in a good fall might leave him $1,200. Close to $1 in every 3 went back across that feed counter. He was 78 the last time he signed for feed in that book. And the herd was 50 head by then. And he still had his 2 sections. And he still had the well. The store never billed John Wayne 1 cent. Because that is what the signature was for. It was never a handout. It was a man standing up in a room and saying, in 4 words, "This one is good." And then an old man spending 7 years proving him right. The clerk stayed on at that store another 9 years. No reckoning ever came for him. Nobody fired him, nobody called the owner, nobody put a hand on him. He raised a family in Amarillo. Wayne had not walked up to that counter to settle with a clerk. He walked up to put a name on a line. Otis Teague died in 1971. He was 84. His daughter cleaned out the house and found the truck and the pipe fittings and a coffee can of quarters, and she found nothing about John Wayne because there was nothing to find. He never told her. She heard it in 1974 at another funeral from a man in his middle 30s who had been 19 years old and standing in a canvas coat 4 feet from that counter. He told it badly. He kept stopping. He told her he had thought about where he was standing that morning nearly every day since. She said later that she understood halfway through that he was not really telling her about John Wayne at all. A few years after that, the feed store closed. The highway had moved, and the family had scattered, and the building went to somebody who wanted the lot. When they cleared it out, they found the ledgers in a back room, 8 of them, gray cloth spines, water damaged at the bottom. Somebody thought to call an archive. Today, in a regional history collection near Canyon, Texas, 17 miles south of Amarillo, there is a page from one of those ledgers mounted flat under glass. October 1958. Feed and Seed, East Amarillo. The paper has gone the color of weak coffee, and the ruled lines have faded to gray. Halfway down is the account of a cattleman named Otis Teague, 71, 2 sections north of Amarillo. Under it, on the guarantor line, in black ink gone brown with age, pressed hard enough that the indentation still shows through the reverse of the page, is a signature, and under that, running down the page and on to the next one, is 7 years of feed. Every load, every date, every amount. And beside every single one of them, in the same clerk's writing, the same 3 letters, paid. Not one of them billed to the man who signed. The card names the store. It names Otis Teague. It gives the date. It never explains the signature at the top of the page, but you know whose name it is. If this story reached you, do me a favor, pass it on. Share it with somebody whose word was the only collateral they ever had. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. There are more Duke stories coming. And unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.